So thank you very much for attending our webinar series for today. We specifically focus on the idea of assessment and flexible learning activities, as well as how to design an e-learning course. So I am Dr. Niño Naldoza from Philippine Normal University. I am currently the director of the Institute of Knowledge Management. Okay, so the discussion for today will focus on three topics. There will be three modules along the way. And if you have some questions, you are free to comment on the YouTube comment section. So yeah, let's start with the first topic. Let me share to you my screen. Okay, so our first topic for today will focus on the designing an idea of outcomes-based assessment for flexible learning. We learned that outcomes-based is directly focusing on competencies and standards. And due to the existing turnaround of the modalities on how to deliver courses or lessons in the basic education, or even in the whole education system. So there is a need for us to understand what would be our direction in addressing our OBE-driven curriculum in terms of assessment. Okay, so these are the topics. So we'll be discussing about the rules of assessment in the instructional design process, as well as assessment strategies. And I'll be giving you also some insights on what kind of assessment strategy or activity that you can use whenever you deliver in a flexible learning or a distance education course, as well as it's also anchored with the outcomes-based assessment. We have the outcomes-based assessment for outcomes-based education. So, but first we need to discuss the assessment basics, no? I don't want to discuss it further because I know that we're very particular with this assessment basics. But what I want to emphasize here is how do we really assess our students in terms of approach in an online modality or in a face-to-face modality. So in order for us to understand these differences, we need to go back with certain facts, okay? Facts of assessment. So let us have the first one. So the first fact when dealing with assessment is that we always give or assign grades to our students at the end of the instruction or even during or before. And we always have the idea of summative assessment for this, wherein we give grades or a passing mark to get certifications, or even at the end of the lesson or a course. Another essential idea of assessment is, it's providing feedback in any kind of checking or monitoring the academic performance of our students, whether it is in face-to-face or in online, is providing feedback. Feedback is very important, most especially in the delivery of distance education. So why is there a need to give feedback? Because that serves as a confirmation or an attest to how students perform well and how they will become responsible to their own learning based on a given set of standard or criteria. Aside from that, assessment activities presented throughout the course can identify also what we call learner misconceptions. When talking about learner misconceptions, it focuses on the alignment between the objectives of the lesson, the learning activities you conducted, and the evaluative measures you implemented. If there is if there are misalignment in terms of the way you deliver a course, whether it is in face-to-face or online, there will be sort of problems later on. Aside from that, assessment can also focus on the idea of learner's readiness. It's the pre-assessment or what they call the diagnostic assessment. Most especially if we will be delivering a course in order for the student to be trained or to be skillful, being required in a skill training environment. And it also serves as a motivational activity. We we always say that whenever we give tests to our student, it is a matter of a risk or a challenge for the student to answer an exam. They may be terrorized by the way how we give the exam. Contrasting to this idea, wherein assessment can function as a motivational activity. How? When they pass a given exam or a given performance test, and when they are satisfied with what they have done or what they had achieved based on the based on the um, acquired competency or acquired level of standards by the student, so it will serve as a good motivation for them to continue. Okay, now those are some of the basics, no, basic facts on assessment. But the focus of this topic will be on distance learning, flexible learning, and assessment. How can we really connect or integrate these terms? Now, remember that one of the way one of the ways on determining the level of achievement and quality of teaching is through testing or through assessment. That's how we can make judgment or decisions. With the idea of distance education, there is a need for us to understand that we're not heavily relied on paper and pencil examinations. Going digitized or going digital upon integration of ICT would be a great help for the teachers. That's why if you're attending webinars or trainings in terms of technology enhancement, for example, you attended a webinar on how to create Google Form, how to construct an online test, how to use an LMS, how to develop an ebook. So that will be beneficial as long as you know how it is being used or how it is being integrated on the lesson plan or the lesson course pack that you're about to apply. It can also be discerned that in the teaching and learning context, the way how these evaluation measures are being offered in synchronous or asynchronous. In talking about synchronous, it's a live way or a simultaneous way of checking our students in a very interactive manner. While if it is asynchronous, there's a platform wherein students can check their email, they can check their communication patterns in a form of an email, in a form of Facebook post, wherein they can check that right after. So it is time bounded. There are you can put limitations or restrictions on how you would deliver that. All right, so I will be showing you a competency-based approach of assessment for distance learning, wherein if you will look on the diagram here, from the enhanced face-to-face learning, wherein you are physically present in the classroom and you will apply technology whenever you do instruction or whenever you create or you implement a lesson. Going through the diagram would be the blended learning approach, wherein there's a separation. It's not merely a total separation or physical separation, but you are doing what we call hybridization. That's the idea of combining a face-to-face class or an online class. Then going through the idea of full online, wherein there's no physical contact at all, but you are delivering your class in a learning management system. Then you're giving your instructions there. If you will be looking at the lower part of the diagram, we have here the digital technology, wherein it increases, the digital technology requirement increases as you go further on on the advanced level of modality. So, ibig sabihin nito, mas tumataas yung requirement for teacher efficiency or technological efficiency as you go further into online delivery. Pero kapag nasa face-to-face learning delivery ka, you can go through with a simple way of applying technology. So it's not merely the idea of if you go to blended, you go high level. Because there's always a requirement for you to do that based on the level of competency or based on the level of the requirements on the institution side and on the faculty side. Okay. Another framework here that I'll be showing you is this is the general framework in the program approach cited by or created by Julie Leroux, wherein she highlighted here the idea of the three major assessment types. We have here diagnostic assessment, the formative assessment, and the summative or the certification assessment. Looking at the different modalities, like if you are doing an enhanced face-to-face learning, a blended one, an online, or a virtual classroom, there's always a need for the following competencies. The way you give your assessment task, the tools that you are using, tools can be, the paper and pencil types of exam, performance-based, portfolio-based, project-based. If it is, the idea of ICT is very important. What kind of ICT tool you're going to use as you deliver your assessment task? And the level of interaction for your student. Is it a student to content interaction, a teacher to student, or both student to student, or both student interaction? Categorize also the teacher's role and the student role. So if you are planning to make a flexible learning assessment approach, I would suggest that you will use this framework. Okay. Now the essentials of this framework is it works within a program approach, meaning to say it's a top-down approach. Depending on the delivery, how the program is being implemented or the course being implemented. It requires also different teaching and learning situations. And talking about situations, is it face-to-face? Is it blended? Is it remote learning? Is it flexible? Or is it a full online? Then also the other communication path modes would be synchronous or asynchronous. That's how you describe your assessment task later on. Then task into account the different assessment intentions. Will you do your assessment in the duration of the class or the course? Will you do an assessment as a completion of the course itself or a diagnostic one? The alignment is very important as well as how you will integrate that to ICT. Then the accountability of the key actors, whether it is student content, teacher student interaction, or even both student interaction. Right. Another one is the outcomes based assessment. No? To clearly define this, I want to go back to the essence of outcomes based evaluation, wherein the general question would be, did the learner demonstrate the mastery of the skills identified in the objectives? So it's the idea of capability, no? the idea of the process of demonstration based on the given skills mastered by the student. Now, the idea of outcomes based heavily rely on criteria. So, mean to say it's not norm reference. Remember that we have two types of referencing in assessment. We have the norm reference and we have the criterion reference. For outcomes based learning, it's purely criterion reference scoring. That's why whenever you conduct a distance or a flexible learning mode of teaching, we always consider criterion reference. We always provide a set of standards to our student based on the given learning competency. Why? There's a limited interaction. That's the given challenge for distance education or flexible learning. There's a limited interaction, but how can you ensure that the objectives were being met? Now, you can only have that through criterion reference scoring. So it's kind of challenging on our part, but it's not behavioral based, it's not emotional or affective based. I mean, we can say na halos walang puso kung tutuusin whenever you conduct a distance learning approach. Because it says here that in order for the student to master content, they should not be compared to one another. It's not relevant at all. Because we are looking at the idea of checking their performance based on the expectations. Or for example, no, may mga bata, may mga students na, sir, we haven't accomplished your task posted in Facebook. Can we still accomplish that? So the idea of flexibility is there. You can extend, but you cannot revise the quality of the task given there. You can do flexibility, meaning to say you can extend the rate of submission, but the quality of the task should be still what you had been presented or what you had been asked to do so. Because we are looking at the criterion reference basis for outcomes based assessment. Now, if grades have gone up over time while actually learning has remained relatively stable, does this indicate that grades, in fact, may not be terribly useful performance or indicators of performance? Actually, we can say that the quality of the learning can be stagnant or can still be there's no changes at all on the way how we do or how we deliver instruction, but the way how grades are being changed, the grading system has been changed recently. For example, in DepEd, nagbago ang grading system, no? May mga transmuted scale sila. Even in some universities, may mga ganun din silang grading system protocols. Pero halos hindi naman nagbago yung quality ng teaching. Are we still using or are we still checking the useful indicators of performance? Definitely hindi. Kasi meron tayong concern dito when it comes to the matching of the enhanced learning or teaching process to the quality of the way how things or how competencies are being graded. Now, we can also say that one of the important features of outcomes-based assessment is the alignment. With dealing with alignment, there are three: addressing its synchronicity. First one is the learning objectives, another one is the assessment, and the third one is the instructional activities. They are interdependent to one another. That's why whenever you do a learning course, an e-learning course, you need to consider the essential learning competencies. That's why we have right now DepEd having the minimum learning competencies, I think. That was being released yesterday lang, that every teacher will follow and will consider whenever they do remote learning or flexible learning modality in DepEd. So hindi ganong kahirap magturo sa isang flexible learning environment as long as you know how to create a learning plan. Kasi as long as you are knowledgeable on how to match the objectives to the quality of activity and the way how it is being assessed, madali siyang i-deliver. Nagkakaroon lang tayo ng problem or concerns or challenges when it comes to the modality. How will you deliver? Is it in a modular base? Is it in a full online? Is it in a blended learning approach? Or you go to face-to-face later on? Now, let's talk about the objective and subjective assessment measures. One of the concerns would be the nature of the product resulting to the student performance. Whenever you ask your student to have their output in a form of a performance base, a product base, or a process base, are we more concerned on the way how they are creating the output or with the quality of the output itself? It measures it in a flexible learning modality, lalo't kung may separation ng teachers at ng student, we can't even really check the process faithfully because we expect them to have output later on to be submitted. That's in the form of a product. Now, it matters on how do we assess them objectively or subjectively. That is why in terms of objective measures, example of the objective measures are the paper and pencil exams like multiple choice, matching type, true or false, alternate response, identification, enumeration exams. Those are still considered in the flexible learning modality and it offers significant advantages. Ibig sabihin, mas madali para sa ating gumawa ng ganong exam. But the problem is how does it really check the quality of competency if it is being administered in a flexible learning modality? Another, we're talking about subjective measures. These subjective measures are being intervened. There's an intervention with the human judgment in terms of scoring. Like for example, we are using rubrics, no? We're using criteria for checking the subjective measures. Whenever we ask our student to submit a research paper, an essay test, or a project, or even presentations, and whenever you ask them to submit asynchronously, the idea of strategy whenever you use asynchronous online discussions matters on how you will assess subjective assessment. Okay? Now, subjective assessment methods work especially in a distance education environment. So it is true. Why? Because our main goal for the outcomes-based assessment is to always check the criteria. But in a flexible learning modality, we always apply subjective assessment. For example, whenever we ask our student to submit reflections or submit feedback or to create or to respond in a discussion forum, that is in a form of subjective assessment. That's why it is being well grounded or well implemented in a flexible learning or a distance education environment. One good example of this modality or the subjective assessment is the authentic assessment, wherein you are asking your student to accomplish a task that is being simulated based on the real world scenarios or real world challenges. That's authentic. I know you're familiar with this. Then we also have the performance base, wherein it is heavily relied on a performance or the way how they perform a skill. But it is being limited or challenging in a flexible learning environment wherein how can you really assess their performance if you can't really observe, no? One good means or one good alternative would be let them demonstrate it and record, or record using a video in a in a multimedia output where they can send that to you and you can easily check the output. But again, challenges would be the accessibility to internet, accessibility to gadgets, how they can do that. Now you need to again reassess. You need to again find alternative solutions or find alternative strategies on how you can easily adapt this kind of assessment. Now let's talk about the different assessment strategies. For these strategies, I will be recommending to you some of the relevant activities that you can apply to perform an outcomes-based assessment or instruction in a flexible learning environment. So let's have here the first one. One good example would be the online quizzes and tests. If you are using a learning management system, the LMS itself, for example, if your school invested on Moodle, on Neo LMS, on Schoology, on Blackboard, on Google Classroom, this is one of the best assessment strategy that you can apply. It is used as formative. Talking about formative, you can have this in the middle of the discussion, in the middle of an online discussion, and it can provide feedback right after. Because it's time bounded, for example, whenever you create an online quiz, it can easily generate a result. For example, you have Google Form, no? Karamihan ng mga teachers, bago pa ma-explore yung idea ng LMS, gumagamit ng mga Google Forms to create their online test. So there are features there where students can easily check the progress of their output. So pwede lang ma-check agad yung kanilang mga grades. And it's a good reinforcement also on their part to keep abreast on the idea of online testing. Now, like for example, you can have your multiple choice exam in the form of an online quiz. You can also have a simple essay test, an online test using this one. You just need to check whether the LMS or the learning management system of your institution is working. Because some of the LMS available right now requires investment from the institution. I mean to say, like for example, Moodle. Moodle is an open source learning management system. So pwede siyang i-acquire ng kahit anong universities. But the way how the LMS will be programmed or will be enhanced in order to fit on the need of the institution itself to adopt online learning or blended learning. So it's a matter of instructional designing and programming. So hindi na siya trabaho talaga ng teacher, pero nasa trabaho siya ng mga instructional designers. Ayan. So mas madaling gawin ng online quiz if the method or the assessment method is in the form of objective-based. If it's objective-based, like multiple choice, true or false, matching type, okay, or identification. Another is asynchronous communication. Talking about asynchronous communication, it's the idea of interacting your student which has a dimension of shorter or longer time frame. Example would be example would be email, no? Or Facebook post. That's what they call asynchronous communication. Ibig sabihin, pwedeng mong balikan yung message or yung communication measures na ginawa ng estudyante sa'yo at doon kayo pwede mag-communicate through series of responses. One good example in an online environment or in a flexible learning environment or e-learning is the discussion forum. This is an example of a discussion forum. Okay, that's asynchronous communication. So one good strategy would be whenever you do a discussion forum on your class in an online environment or flexible learning environment is giving them thought-provoking questions. So hiwalay na natin, huwag na natin gawin yung mga tanong na purely low level like what, when, who, and where. Online class or flexible learning classes right now heavily requires thought-provoking questions. So it's not about neglecting the mastery, but it's enriching the mastery. You're trying to integrate the learning of the what, who, the learning of the W's in a thought-provoking environment. Best example would be in a form of discussion forum. Again, it boils down with the pedagogical patterns of teacher. Kasi kahit magandang assessment strategy na ginamit mo, pero hindi well structured yung task or yung instruction to your student, it's useless. It's useless. Okay? One good example would be student debate, no? You're posing them a problem or a topic wherein they can discuss, okay? Or a discussion moderated by the student wherein as a student reply or responded to a given discussion, anyone can give feedback or give suggestions or can butt in. Okay? It can also serve as a repository for student assignment. That's a good measure. If you want to check the progress or the growth of your student in terms of the way they learn the course, patterned with the competency level, discussion forum can serve as a good repository. Okay. Another one is blogs. So, karamihan sa mga estudyante natin ngayon, kahit na, elementary pupil, marunong na gumawa ng mga blog yan. It's just that they are not really familiar with how blog is being initiated. Maybe because some teachers are not that trained enough to create a blog. For example, in senior high school, in a private university, in a private school, no, you ask your student to create a blog with this competency or with these guidelines. But how can you assure that they are really creating a blog if you yourself as a teacher haven't yet created a blog? So hindi ka pa talaga nakagawa ng blog ever since. That's why it's important whenever you give an activity, dapat si teacher muna, meron na siyang idea talaga kung paano gumawa ng activity na before he or she can impose or implement that in a given task. Most especially in our changing modality right now, the online modality, the flexible learning. Kasi I know na most of us are not yet knowledgeable kung paano i-deliver ang mga to. Even DepEd, even state universities are having hard time in planning modalities for learning. Pero kasi sa part natin as teachers, hindi naman kasi pwedeng hindi tayo marunong gumawa ng mga outputs na ipapagawa naman natin sa bata. At least meron tayong first hand kung paano siya gagawin. So as we can understand how it looks like, how it is being implemented, how it can be enriched, and how it can be revised later on. One good also example would be wikis. It allows students to collaborate in the form of, for example, WordPress, Wikispaces, Wikipedia, wherein these are available internet engines that students can post or can collaborate with one another with their outputs. I give you an example of my activity, no, given to my student. So this is a standalone assessment. Ito yung kasagsagan ng COVID. I asked them, it's a discussion forum wherein the topic is more on suspend or extend. So I give them instructions on how they will answer on the discussion forum. So for example, sabi ko dito, for your task, You will analyze the decisions of the most universities in terms of spending class amidst COVID-19 pandemic. As you observe and read on your social media accounts and with definition orders, so guided with the following questions. So meron akong disclaimer dito on how they will kindly expect that some of us may reply or give comment to what we had been posted or responded. This can be a great offline conversation for us to reflect on the instructional practices in education. So ito yung aking instruction for them. So let's look at some of the outputs, no? Ayan, so mahaba-haba ang mga outputs ng iba. It can be concise. Merong iba naman na very specific with my question. Then iba, ganito yung form na ginagawa nila. Ito yung sample ng mga submissions na ginawa nila. Dito ako magdadepende ngayon ng kanilang grading. It's asynchronous in a sense na meron akong deadline. Example, no? It started March 28, but the due is on May 30 pa. So, ang haba. So, pwede nilang balikan yung kanilang mga outputs. So that's the kind of discussion forum that you may apply to your student. And nga lang, you need to give them an ample time to post the reflections based on the quality of questions that you are posting. You are giving in a particular task. Another one is the synchronous communication. For synchronous communication, there's a live interaction. There's a direct conversation with a person. So one good example, or the examples of the following would be live chat in the form of messenger chat, video conferencing, whenever you do online meetings in Zoom, in Google Meet, in Facebook Messenger, in Workplace by Facebook, no? Pwede nyo siyang gawin. Or phone conversations. So these are synchronous communication. Important capabilities for synchronous communication is the idea of immediacy. Meaning to say, are they all available? Whenever they're available, are they ready in an online discussion or in a synchronous communication? Whenever you ask them to go in a Google Meet discussion, are they comprehending? Are they giving feedback? Kasi may mga iba dyan na, syempre, may hiyang mag-comment, magbigay ng kanyang suggestion or magbigay ng kanyang discussion about the topic. So, how can you build a sense of immediacy? And how will the instructor facilitate the way students are being grouped or the lessons being structured? Kasi in an online class, kapag nandiyan na sila lahat sa Zoom, yung delays, napaka-importante nun. Dapat walang masyadong delay. At the same time, you are well prepared whenever you conduct a lesson. That's one of the challenging part of delivering an online class or delivering an online or a distance education. The idea of communication synchronously. Merong ibang mga student na wala ring internet connection. So, how can you monitor their performance? How can you check their progress, no? That's one of the main issue right now for synchronous communication. Another one is portfolio. For portfolio, not all teachers are doing this. Kasi usually, kapag e-portfolio or electronic portfolio, it requires electronic outputs that can be arranged or organized in a learning management system. That's the idea of e-portfolio. Kasi kapag nasa face-to-face classroom tayo, you do portfolios, it's just a simple collection, no? Simple collection of the evidences. Pwedeng i-compile yan, pwedeng i-organize sa kung saan mang may area tayo. Pero sa idea ng distance learning or flexible learning, iba ang konteksto niya. For example, on the first level of the portfolio making, so you have here, for example, collection of photos, images, or the copy of ebooks, presentations converted into a video or PDF, even the documents converted to PDF. So that's the way how you will collect the outputs of your student. Or even recorded video or recorded audio. Basta everything about electronic na pwede mong pagsama-samahin, those are the evidences, no? Another one, the second level of e-portfolio would be the process in terms of reflective journal. Any kind of discussion forum outputs or reflective journal can also be part of an e-portfolio. But the idea on how you will store, there's what we call an assessment management system. Ibig sabihin, bukod sa learning management system natin, ang ang institution ba or ang infrastructure ba ay merong kakayahan na mag-store ng lahat ng outputs ng mga bata. Medyo mahirap 'yan kasi in a distance learning modality, the way you save or the way you store data or information or evidences, there must be a good server or a good cloud computing server na pwedeng paglagakan ng lahat ng mga evidences ng e-portfolio. Pero kung wala, what we can do is to print everything, to save everything in a flash drive. So para ka din bumalik sa usual na portfolio ng face-to-face. Ayun, so that's one good measure for assessment. So the key elements of portfolio creation is that the student decide what material to be included in the collection. So what good examples would be self-reflection that may serve as determining the standards or criteria for learning. Papers and essay also, hindi pa rin siya nawawala sa hanggat meron tayong curriculum, assessment patterns, there's always a need to create papers and essay. Yun nga lang, in a flexible learning modality, gamit na gamit ang term papers. Pero yun nga, the idea is the quality of the term paper being produced and the quality of essay being done by the student. So advantages of this would be students are creating their papers or outputs electronically. That's why it can easily be easily be uploaded on the learning management system or submit through an email. Submitted via email. Even also the idea of creating term papers or research outputs monitored or being shared via Google Docs or Google Slide. Presentations. Isa din to sa mga gamit na assessment strategies ng sa mga bata. When you ask your student can you create a short presentation on this topic and deliver that in our online class meeting next week? So pwede mo siyang gawin na ganon. Pwede naman, you ask them to create a simple presentation, then submit it as part of the requirements, so pwede rin naman. Pero we always suggest, in this kind of assessment, to use rubrics. Okay, lagi meron tayong rubrics na ginagamit dapat. Problem-based activities. Focus on problem-based learning at the start of the lesson. You are posing already a given problem or patterns for scenario-based learning, problem-based, then that's a good way for you to run through the whole course itself. Journal writing in a form of reflection writing. Right after they watch a video, what they can say, what they can reflect. So you may ask them to create a journal for outcomes-based assessment. Concept mapping. In a full course instruction, course implementation, you may ask your student in terms of their learning comprehension to create a concept map. So these concept maps will initially help them to analyze and to understand the lesson for the day. At least hindi lang focus lagi sa mga reflections, but we want them to organize ideas on their own in a form of concept mapping. You may go back to the principle of Ausubel, okay, on concept maps, so as you could be guided. Simulation and games. Not all teachers can create good simulations or even craft or program a game, most especially in an online learning environment. There are prototypes available in the internet that you can apply or you can use. But the way of monitoring, it can be difficult. It can be challenging. Now let's talk about the ongoing and non-graded measures. Ito ang dalawa sa mga dapat ninyong matandaan whenever you do a flexible learning instruction or in a distance learning instruction. Meron tayong tinatawag na ongoing at non-graded measures. Now let's talk about ongoing. Ang sabi, ongoing is sometimes called an embedded assessment. Meaning to say, whenever you ask student in an online class, pwede ka magpagawa ng natawag natin na ongoing assessment. This ongoing assessment is a form of a test or a task that is not non-threatening. Meaning to say, hindi siya makaka-apekto directly sa performance ng bata. You can have this in a day-to-day classroom or training event. Best example would be recitation, no? It's an ongoing assessment. Ibig sabihin, may mga klase ng recitations na ginagamit natin for validation purposes. Pero hindi naman siya necessary na main requirement in order for the student to get good grades in a course. So these are ongoing. Mean to say, pwede kasing hindi mo siya i-reflect doon sa mismong klase, sa mismong lesson plan or course plan. It's just that in the middle of the discussion, you are checking validations. You're trying to get validation through a question, through a task. And that's what we call an ongoing assessment. Now, the other one is the non-graded. Most of the assessment patterns in flexible learning applies what we call the non-graded assessment. For the non-graded assessment, it measures for part of the course, alleviates much of the strain of assigning course to massive amounts of student work. Yan. So, one good tip, no, when in a flexible learning environment, hindi mahalaga na napakarami kang hindi dapat marami ang pinapagawa mong requirements. Actually, hindi rin naman kailangan na week by week merong output ang bata. Kasi you are doing an alternative modality of instruction that is fit on your student. Now, if you will require them to submit an output every week, it can be exhausting. Kasi if you look on the face-to-face instruction naman, usually naman sa face-to-face, di ba, if you meet them twice a week, hindi ka naman every meeting nagbibigay ng activity o ng task o ng exam. So, ganun din siya sa distance learning or sa flexible learning. As much as possible, for example, in a 12-week course, pwede ka nga magbigay lang ng 2 major activities. Then yung quizzes mo doon, pwedeng kahit 2 o 3 lang. Kasi ang mahalaga naman doon ay yung virtual interaction, yung the way how you design the learning plan, no? That is different from the usual face-to-face. Sinasabi ng ilan na, madali lang naman gumawa ng online class kasi kung ano yung nasa face-to-face, yun din yung ilalagay mo sa online class. Actually, it's a misconception. Mahirap siyang gawin. Lalo't kung napaka-stringent nung competencies na nire-require ng face-to-face na hindi kayang i-deliver sa online class, sa isang flexible learning class. Halimbawa, paano kung walang internet yung bata tapos kailangan niya na matapos yung course pero ang tanging resources na meron lang siya ay printed materials o yung modules, no? Ibig sabihin, kailangan mong baguhin o kailangan mong i-realign yung lesson objectives na nakapalood sa module. Kasi hindi siya mag-fit sa form ng homeschooling or ng modular-based learning. Kaya we are doing what we call non-graded measures or non-graded assessment. How how ample how will you dedicate ample time, ample measures in checking non-graded assessment. Now another one is the idea of flexibility. Course structures, including the timing of assessment deadlines, can often be flexed without negative consequences. You can extend, no? Halimbawa, within the week, sinabi mo sa bata, oh, you need to submit your your output via email by Friday. E paano kung biglang nawala ng internet, nagkabagyo, nagka-brownout sa area? So yung bata mag-i-email sa iyo yan. Sir, baka pwedeng extend, baka pwedeng. So you need to, on your end as teacher, in a flexible learning environment, you flex. Ibig sabihin, habaan all possible options na pwedeng gawin ng bata para makapag-submit ng output na hindi naman magkakaroon ng derail. Hindi siya magkakaroon ng derail on the quality of performance. So, yun yung isa sa mga concerns natin in terms of flexibility. Another one is the rubric. Rubric is very important in outcomes-based assessment. You should always provide rubrics to your student whenever you conduct instruction. Whenever you do individual judgment, there's always a rubric basis. Okay, like for example, this one, no? This is an example rubric for an asynchronous discussion contribution. So, it is being cited here. Nag-online meeting ka. So, gusto mo mag-interact yung mga bata. May gusto mo meron sila masabi. So, this is a good rubric for you to use in asynchronous discussion. Through email. Example is asynchronous. For example, email output, discussion forum. So ito ang isa sa magandang rubric output na rubric example na pwede mong gawin. So participation rubric, this one. This participation rubric can be used for synchronous communication. Ayan. I-discuss ka, online meeting kayo, what can you share about this topic? Can you give some insights or reflection? So this is a good rubric pattern. Pero the question is, will you be able to assess them one by one, real time? Yung kasi ang concern dun eh. Mahirap, it's a challenge for synchronous learning kasi hindi lahat kaya mong ma-check in one sitting. Lalo't kung naka-online class ka. Unless you record, no? Pag na-record mo yan, no problem. Madali mo siya magagawa kung yan ay naka-record. So discussion rubric can also be good. So the criteria are the following. We can check through promptness, relevance, expression within the post, contribution to the group, or even the mechanics. Did they follow instruction? Did they go through the reminders? So on and so forth. Creating a blog. So this is a good reflective blog that you can use, no? The use of blog or mastery or the intellectual engagement on the topics and personal interpretations about the topic itself or the content. You can also go with engagement and creativity. So ayan. So those are the essentials of outcomes-based learning. Okay, so what I can suggest is in assessment, these are the gist or the summary when it comes to this topic. It's very important for you to shift, no, to address complexities in terms of assessment. Yeah, given the fact that paper and pencil assessment are still useful, totoo naman, in a flexible learning or in distance learning modality. Pero widely used kasi ang outcomes-based assessment. Outcomes-based in the form of performance-based, product-based, non-graded assessment in this kind of current situation. One good one good manifestation also, or one good insights would be whenever we give exam, it should not be overflowing. Meaning to say, hindi dapat sobrang dami. Example, in a quarter, how many requirements will you include on the course or in the subject area or the subject matter? Again, hindi kailangan sobrang dami. Kung pwede nga lang isa lang, kung pwede nga lang na isa lang, yung kanilang major requirement na pwede nilang matapos within 2 months, pwedeng yun na yung gawin nila. Again, it's always being matched with the learning competencies, the instructional activities, as well as the quality of the assessment that you will apply. Yun yung pinaka-concern natin. Next topic will focus on the foundations of e-learning or distance education. In order for you to understand how relevant, parang before you go to the training of flexible learning, kailangan niyo muna maintindihan anong pinag-ugatan niya. Kasi hanggat hindi natin siya naiintindihan, hindi tayo magkakaroon ng perspective. Why do we need to conduct online class? Why do we need to have e-learning approach? Ba't kailangan natin mag-blended? Ba't kailangan natin mag-remote learning? Ba't kailangan natin mag-full online? So I will be teaching you the fundamentals later on. Okay, in order for you to understand saan ang pinag-ugatan niya, ano ang foundations, bakit siya ginagawa. Good morning, everyone. So before we start with the second topic, let me share to you some of the comments from, comments posted on our YouTube account. What is effective assessment to preschoolers for distance learning as online application is concerned? All right, let me share the perspective from DepEd. For preschoolers, the best option would be homeschooling and online education. Now, if DepEd will provide modules or learning videos or learning resources to the preschoolers, the best option for this would be homeschooling being administered by the parents, because still preschoolers are considered to be one of the most vulnerable people for this pandemic crisis. So talagang hindi sila makakabalik face-to-face sa school kung magsimula man sa August ang klase. What DepEd can do, since sila yung client ng DepEd na vulnerable talaga, isa sa mga vulnerable ang mga bata, ay mag-homeschooling. But the problem for online education or for online learning is that, are preschoolers capable of using LMS? Kasi kung hindi kakayanin ng mga preschoolers na mag-manipulate, hindi using LMS or using online learning, tablets, mukhang babalik ito sa idea of homeschooling. Homeschooling in a form of giving modules, which is nandun naman ang direction ni DepEd ngayon. Creating content, using content in a form of, content or instruction in a form of modules. Ito mga modules na ito ibibigay sa parents. Ngayon, si parents ang magtuturo ng mga modules sa mga bata. How can the teachers validate the outputs? So, naka-structure na yun dun sa module kung itong week na to, anong kailangan gawin ng bata sa mga susunod na mga linggo, kailan nila isasubmit, paano isasubmit yung mismong output ng mga bata. So, si parent ang mismong gagawa. May problem tayo kung wala o hindi visible yung parent sa bahay, kung iba ang nag-aasikaso. Kasi kailangan it's anchored with the idea of scaffolding. Kapag preschooler, kailangan talaga ito ng guidance sa mga bata. So ayun. So hopefully DepEd will be able to provide or to create good modules, high quality modules for preschoolers. Let me share to you my slide now for the next topic. So this time around, we will be discussing the e-learning basics or the e-learning methodologies, the foundations and whys. So, ano ba ang origin? The main reason why e-learning, online learning, blended learning, remote learning, flexible learning exists. So, you will learn in this topic the basics or the general perspective for the remote and flexible learning as well as e-learning. So, these are the topics. I will be defining distance education from the theories, foundations, and the perspective, as well as the whys of the e-learning. What are the approaches, the components, the qualities, and the models for e-learning, as well as what are the general requirements to develop an e-learning course. Okay, so let's start. So the idea of new normal doesn't merely apply or doesn't merely associated with distance education. Kasi ever since meron ng distance education, way back way back 70 years ago. So matagal na siya. So yun nga lang, in the Philippines, it's not merely well practiced at all because of limited infrastructures and limited information about distance education. Hindi man ibig sabihin na when you do distance education, you are physically separated lang. Pero marami siyang means of modalities. It cannot even associated for the new normal directly to the new normal because it's already existing even before. Siguro mas naging maingay lang yung kanyang need o yung clamor ngayon dahil meron tayong pandemic. Pero actually, some schools in the Philippines are already offering distance education. Like for example, the UPOU, the University of the Philippines Open University. Even UST, De La Salle is offering blended learning approach. PNU is offering blended learning. Ateneo, some private schools in the Philippines, some state universities. So, yun. Now, how can we really define distance education? Simonson described distance education as an institution-based. Mean to say, it is well organized, it is highly structured, it is a formal education where the groups or the learners and the teachers are well separated. And in order for them to be connected, they are using what we call interactive telecommunication system. This telecommunication system is in the form of radio, video, satellite streams, TV, social media, internet, email, so on and so forth. So these are means for them to connect with one another, with the learner, with the resources or the available means for teaching and for the instruction. That for instructor. So that is distance education. That's a general description. If we will be looking at the perspective of Simonson. Now, there are different what we call components. There are 4 components of distance education. It should be institutional based, as what I've shared a while ago. It's separate. There's a separation between teacher and student, and the use of ICT or interactive communications. Then the learning experiences, how the instruction or how this modality is being delivered through sharing of data, through sharing of voices, or video sharing. Now, let us look at the origins. Ang pinagmulan ng distance education ay, at least 160 years ago. So, ganun siya katagal. It started in England in a form of what we call a correspondence study. So, mean to say, ito yung traditional na learning through correspondence. Ibig sabihin, from the academy schools in England, in order for it to complete a course, if you cannot go physically on the school, the institution will provide you set of books, resources that you can accomplish at home. Now, once you accomplish those outputs, upon deadline of completion, ibabalik mo, isisend mo pabalik yung mismong output. It can be through courier. Pinapadala pa nga yan, minsan through courier pa. Or even, ikaw mismo physically, pupunta dun sa school para isubmit yung physical output mo. That's the idea of correspondence study. So dyan nag-start ang distance education. 160 years ago. So gano'n na siya katagal. Okay. Another one is the idea of electronic communications. So even typewriter can be a means for distance education. Yeah, the basics, I mean the use of radio, the TV, telephone. So that's the same until now. That's the same. Those are the means for us to communicate with distance education with our professor. So with the institution, we're implementing the distance education. Now the first distance teaching universities are the following. So we have the Open University of the United Kingdom in 1971. So ito siya ngayon, that's the Open University. And German Fürth the founded in 1975. So sila ang mga pinakaunang distance teaching universities. So dito rin nagsimula ang term na Open University in the United Kingdom. Let's look at the different theories, no? Theories in relation to distance education. The first theory is the theory of independent study. What are the principles of Charles Wedemeyer in this theory? Actually, ito ang isa sa mga pinaka-supporting theories ng distance education. Anything about flexible learning, everything about online education. So ito ang isa sa mga pinagbabatayang theory. Now, first is the student and teacher are separated. That's given. Another one, the normal process of teaching and learning are carried out in writing. That's why we have the module-based instruction or through some other medium. Ito yung gumagamit ng electronic resources. Again, in this theory, it states that teaching is individualized. So, kaya nga siya tinawag na independent study. Students are developing or constructing their ideas, their outputs individually. Now, learning takes place through the student's activity. That's why distance education or flexible learning or remote learning is activity-based or outcomes-based siya. Hindi siya purely lecture na napakarami ng discussion mo, pero it's based on a given activity. Supplemental na lang yung lecture kung tutuusin. Learning is made convenient for the student in his or her own environment. So mean to say, meron ditong options on the fitness to conduct the learning, to conduct the teaching with the environment of the student. Halimbawa, kung ang estudyante ay nakatira sa province at halos walang means for internet, so paano papasok sa independent study? So we can provide them modules, we can provide them hard copies of resources, pwede niyang dalhin doon at i-accomplish niya. Tapos, ibabalik na lang niya yung output niya sa school. Or isa-send niya through email kung meron man siyang access with that. So again, the learner takes responsibility for the pace of his or her own progress with freedom to start and stop at any time. Sabihin, anytime, there's idea of flexibility. So again, kung titingnan niyo yung mga principles, halos ito ang tinutumbok talaga ng distance education or ng online education. Okay. Another one is the link between the independent study and the transactional distance. If we're talking about transactional distance, it connotes the interplay among the environment, the individuals, and the patterns of behavior in a situation. Now, we're dealing with transactional distance. If the students and teachers are separated to one another, you cannot impose one modality to be administered. There are lots of modalities that you can apply. Kasi it always account to a given situation. Kaya halimbawa, sa DepEd, for example, no, mag-i-implement ng blended learning. Pero hindi naman lahat ng estudyante may internet. So halimbawa, sa 90 students na merong kaina class, 40 doon kaya mag-blended, anong gagawin ng 50? So yung 50, pwede sila mag-modular approach. So ibig sabihin, ito yung sabi natin na patterns of behavior, the way of their capability of accomplishing a task. That's what we call transactional distance. Now, it is also accounted to a typology of all educational programs having the distinguished characteristic of separation of teacher and learner. Again, the capability of student. Can they go full online? They can go partially online. That's what we call blended. Or they can go into remote learning. Modular based ba sila? Kaya ba nila na kung hindi nila kaya mag-synchronous, halimbawa, hindi nila kaya umattend ng mga online meeting, mga teleconferencing, video conferencing, ang kanilang modality lang ba ay through email? So, doon siya nagkakaroon ng typology. Nagiging transaction-based yung pagtuturo natin. And it also addresses learners' autonomy kasi it's independent study. Walang masyadong monitoring si teacher dito. Yung autonomy of learning heavily relies on the learner. Another theory is from Otto Peters. That's a theory of industrialization of teaching. It says here that the development of distance study courses is just as important as the preparatory work. So meaning to say that whenever you do an instruction, there's always a pattern of work labor. So doon siya nagiging organized and structured. Kasi meron siyang planning and organization. In a sense that the teaching process is largely objectified. Now, sir, di ba kailangan nating i-customize nga ang lessons? Pero bakit sinasabi dito na kailangan siyang generally objectified? When talking about generally objectified, it's more on the general competencies that, or what we call the minimum competencies required for a course, na kailangan siyang largely understood, largely created, and produced. Yung idea ng customization nagiging specific details na lang siya on the process of objectifying the competencies. So kaya siya sinasabi na you go with the general ideas muna in doing flexible learning, then you go to the specific details depending on the transactional distance na meron sila o yung capable sila. Okay? Now, also, the idea of Bornholm, the theory of the interaction and communication. So the value of relating teaching effectiveness to the impact of feelings and belonging and cooperation as well as the actual exchange of questions. So dito pumapasok na kung bakit sa mga online classes, we have this so-called discussion forums. There's always means to interact with our student in an asynchronous and synchronous communication. So sa theory of interaction and communication siyang nag-ugat, yung ganong klase ng principle. Now, another one is the Andragogy by Malcolm Knowles. So, if we're dealing with adult learning, actually, compared to pedagogical perspective, mas malawak ang andragogical perspective if we're dealing with distance education. Kasi mayroong level of maturity na required ang distance education for adults. Kaya mas fit siya whenever we conduct our instructions online with tertiary education or with a graduate school, doctorate, or PhD. Medyo critical ang distance education if we're dealing with preschooling with basic education. Talagang mabigat yung tutok when it comes to learning pedagogies pagdating sa part na yun ng basic education sector natin. Okay, so more than that would be, we will go now to the idea of e-learning. So why do we need to have e-learning? So e-learning can be a good option when there is a significant amount of content to be delivered to a large number of students. Sabihin, in an e-learning class, you can manage for more than 500 students na ikaw lang ang teacher. Kaya mo siyang i-manage na ikaw lang ang teacher. But the main concern here is the amount of content. Gaano kadami yung pag-aaralan given that large number of students. Ibig sabihin, how significant, how essential. That's the main reason why DepEd That's the main reason why DepEd created the minimum learning competencies or the minimum essential learning competencies. Kasi in addressing large number of students in a distance learning modality, kailangan well-crafted at clear yung expectations ng mga competencies. Another, learners come from geographically dispersed locations. Okay? Learners have limited mobility and learners have limited daily time to devote on learning. That's why it's a good option if you will be dealing with this one. Another, learners do not have effective listening and reading skills. Yeah, good learning, e-learning is a good option as well. If the students have least basic computer and internet skills, you can go to e-learning. Pero kung wala, mahirap talaga. Hindi siya pwedeng implement. Kung hindi man lang marunong maggawa ng PowerPoint presentation, hindi marunong, mababa yung skills niya sa keyboarding pa lang, pang hindi talaga pwede. So learners are required to develop homogeneous background knowledge on the topic. Homogeneous or general knowledge about the topic that you're going to deliver. Kaya mahirap kapag nag-e-learning ka with the new topic, new knowledge. Kasi maraming essentials na kailangan pag-aralan. First is the learning of the new knowledge. Second one is the learning of the technology requirement. Third is the learning of the modality on how the teacher will deliver the course or how the instructor will deliver the course. Now, another one is learners are highly motivated to learn and appreciate according to their own pace. So distance education is heavily relied on self-paced learning. That's why it's very important that students are capable of doing an e-learning course. If they're not, then magkakaroon tayo ng problema kasi we need to train them, to inform them or to equip them first on how to deal with e-learning before we conduct the e-learning itself. Aside from that, content must be reused for different learners group in the future. So it's a general course that can be implemented for next set of students. So that's the idea of e-learning. So training aims to build cognitive skills rather than psychomotor skills. It's highly cognitive. Actually, mababang nga yung level ng affective domain in terms of e-learning. Also, the psychomotor skills. Kaya, whenever you do an e-learning course, you always consider the nature of the subject matter. Kung ito ay performance-based, halimbawa, kung skill-based siya, we don't really suggest na i-conduct siya in an e-learning kasi mahirap. Halimbawa, OJT, paano may i-conduct ng e-learning yan? Example is bartending, no? Na heavily required na kailangan may skill. Psychomotor development yung tumbo kasi ng mismong e-learning. Collecting and tracing for ideas or for data. Now let us look with the different e-learning approaches. So first approach for e-learning that you may consider or you must consider is the self-paced e-learning. So it's completely independent. There's a little interaction with the teacher, with the instructor, because everything in the e-learning self-paced is being provided. Mean to say, all resources, all activities, assessments are being intact or being included in the course pack or in the course modality. So the student is free to learn at own pace and to define personal learning paths. The content is developed according to the set of learning objectives, and it can be delivered using different media elements. Okay. Aside from that, we have here the other form of e-learning is the instructor-led and facilitated e-learning. It's considered to be linear in a sense that the elements of content and activities are organized in a chronological manner. So it is being led or facilitated by an instructor through an online learning platform. Or online learning platform would be learning management system, can be Google Classroom, it can be the idea of content management systems. So e-learning content for individual study can be integrated with the lectures of the instructors, individual assignment, and collaborative activities among learners. Now let's talk about the e-learning components. What are the components of e-learning? First one is the content. So for the content, it's simple learning resources. Hindi naman siya kailangan na highly technical na mga resources, technically based resources. It can also be interactive lessons, electronic simulations, or even job aids. Let's look further at the examples. No, simple learning resources are the following. It can be through documents, PowerPoint presentations, videos, or audio file. You can have access for OER. OER stands for the Open Education Resources available in the internet. So pwede nyo siya magamit. It is licensed and license capable siya na pwede nyo magamit anytime. You can also create your own actually. Yung mga ginagawa nyo, mga PowerPoint presentations, mga activity sheets, that could be categorized or classified as simple learning resources. Another one is the interactive e-lessons. E-lessons being designed in the learning management system or learning platforms, it's web-based. At the same time, the combination of text, graphics, animations, multimedia are incorporated as well. It can also provide feedback and questions after. Simulations are good. For example, if you want them to learn, best example of these electronic simulations are the tutorial videos, no? Yung mga tinatawag natin na mga job aids. Okay? Simulations can be also a form of real-world situations and the way how to conduct this thing, how to manipulate, how to operate. So those are good examples. Job aids. These are the job aids provide what we call just-in-time knowledge. Wherein, how can learners simply accomplish a task? That can be done through job aids, no? Ito yung mga simple tips, yung mga do-it-yourself, yung mga tasks na specifically addresses a concern or a question. Halimbawa, paano mag-produce ng digital certificate in an instant? So that's an example of job aids, no? Or paano mag-keyboard typing, paano gumawa ng simple design in a PowerPoint presentation. So that's what they call job aids. It can also be e-tutoring or e-coaching or e-mentoring. So services which provide human and social dimensions can be offered to learners to support them through the learning experiences. Then we have here the collaborative learning. So as one of the components, is very important because students in a learning platform, in an online platform, can collaborate to create a project. Pero again, sabi ko nga, ang distance education heavily relied on independent study or independent learning. The idea of collaboration can be useful if all of the students are capable of doing the online modality or the flexible learning modality. Example would be chat, discussion, forum, and blogs are used for online collaboration. But whenever you do a synchronous communication, we can also do a collaborative learning kasi all of them are present and they can share ideas every now and then. Virtual classroom is led by an instructor. Halimbawa, ito yung mga video web-based or mga video-based learning resources. It is an e-learning event where instructor teaches remotely and in real time to a group of learners using a combination of materials. So, best example would be web-based. It's virtual classroom. It's synchronous learning. So that's virtual classroom is called synchronous learning in such a manner that the instructor conducts a lecture and the students are listening and giving feedback. That's an example of virtual classroom. You're doing the classroom, you're doing your lesson still, you're doing discussions, pero nasa virtual environment lang kayo. So let's now define and describe synchronous and asynchronous learning. So I know you're familiar with this already. Synchronous, it is taking place in real time. You can have it audio and video conferencing. For asynchronous, you can use email or discussion forums. So here are some of the examples, no, of the tools for synchronous learning. You can have chat or instant messaging, video audio conference, live webcasting, like what we're doing right now. This is an example of live streaming or live webcasting. Webinar is an example as well. Application sharing, whiteboard, polling. While if it is asynchronous, you can use email, you can use discussion forum, webcasting as well, or even blog, wikis. Now let us talk with the quality of e-learning. Quality of e-learning, it can be learner-centered. First is learner-centered content. The focus is more on relevant. The curriculum should be relevant and specific to the needs, roles, and responsibilities in professional life. The idea of granularity, the flexibility scheduling or flexible scheduling of time is being considered in e-learning. It can be segmented week by week, portion by portion, fragment by fragment. Content should be creative in terms of its developing. That's very important. Interactivity, frequent learner interaction is needed to sustain attention and to promote learning. Okay? Aside from that, personalization. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na since distance education is generalized, now you can customize it on specific details based on the fitness of the modality to your student. Let's talk about blended learning. No? For blended learning, it comes from different training media. You are considering now the technologies, the quality of activities, and the events to create what we call a training program or instruction-led training being supplemented with electronic format. Example, nag-discuss ka sa loob ng class and then gumamit ka ng video for enriching your lessons. So that's an example of blended learning. Basta gumamit ka na ng kahit anong media or medium for instruction, that's blended learning na. So pwede naman na next week mag-online kayo, then this week face-to-face. So that's blended learning pa rin. So there are two models of blended learning. It can be a program flow, it can be a core and spoke model. So pag program flow, it's a linear sequential order wherein students have deadlines to accomplish, okay, but the activities are being conducted online. So it's program flow. Parang it's highly structured in an online platform na you need to submit this activity on a given schedule. That's program flow. If it's core and spoke model, it provides a set. The idea of e-learning and face-to-face, and the materials are optional to use and it's not scheduled to accomplish. Okay, meron siyang malaking level ng flexibility. No, kaya when you decide kung anong klaseng model lang i-adapt nyo, is it the program flow or the core and spoke model, depending on the need. Okay. So for example, in a pre-class event, you may conduct it online. Then the first meeting or the second meeting would be face-to-face classes. So pwede mo siyang gawin na ganun. Meron namang iba, you start with a face-to-face class, then you end up with independent activities through online. Parang you give first instructions face-to-face, then sa mga susunod na mga meetings na, online na siya. Online na yung modality na gagawin ninyo. Meron namang iba, you assess them online, then you conduct face-to-face classes. After nun, the exam or the post-assessment can be done also online. Yan. So why is there a need for us to develop an e-learning course? More than attending training muna sa paggawa, pero we need first to develop a course. Paano natin muna gagawin ang course? O how can we develop a plan? So, these are the things that you need to provide, no? First one is the activity. So, it is a manner of good design and planning. It's very crucial in the development of e-learning course. So, the way you use a material, the design and development of the material, it can be self-contained. And you can also use the activities in a multiple times. Ibig sabihin, kahit kailan, because it's general. I mean to say, it can cater every learner. Pero nagiging specific siya later on pagdating sa modality. Kaya hindi ganun kalaki yung adjustment na ginagawa natin kapag nasa e-learning modality ka. Now, instructional designing is very important. Not all teachers can be considered as an instructional designer. Because some teachers can be a content provider but not an instructional designer. So minsan hindi natin ito trabaho. Meron talaga mga taong gumagawa to design the instruction being provided by the subject matter expert. So tayo, teacher, we are subject matter expert. Pero hindi lahat sa atin, hindi lahat ng teachers ay kaya ang mag-design ng kanilang sariling instruction. So if you will look into the model for e-learning, we always use the AD model. I know you're familiar with this. Kapag gumagawa ng instructional designs, gumagawa ng mga course content, so we always use the AD model. It starts with the analysis, the design, the development, the implementation, and the evaluation. So first is analysis. You know with this, the first step, filling in the gap, okay, with the professional knowledge and skill. So there's a need for you to know your target audience. First, sino ang clientele na makaka-receive ng e-learning, as well as how will you conduct the analysis. It can be a form of task analysis, identifying first the task that the students should learn or to improve the knowledge, skills that they may be developed or enforced. That's why it is being termed as perform courses. It can also be topic analysis in a form of informed courses naman siya. It is heavily relied on the course content. Yung course mismo, yung laman. Pero sa task analysis, mas concerned siya doon sa competency. So, in terms of design, the idea of formulating the objectives of the lesson, as well as sequencing, and the way how you select the instructions or the instructional media, the evaluation, and the delivery strategy. Then development. So it is the process now you create the material based on the available resources. So there are 3 ways on how you develop the material or the course. It can be content-based, required knowledge and attention. Meron namang iba storyboard. Pag sabi natin storyboard, it integrates all of the methods. It can be the content, the combination of the content, the use of the interactive platforms, for example, image, text, the interactions or the activities, as well as the assessment test. Another one is the course development. Courseware development, how will you now translate? How will you translate the lesson or the lesson plan into the platform itself? Example, paano mo ngayon ililipat o ita-translate na yung ginawa mong course learning plan sa LMS? Paano mo na siya ngayon ililipat sa module? So, yun siya, yung accessibility ngayon ng mga modalities natin. Kaya, napaka-importante nung last part, yung courseware development. Another one is implementation. At this stage, the course delivered to learners. Okay, how it is being delivered, how will you facilitate, how will you manage the instruction. Then the last one will be the evaluation. So you may want to evaluate your learners based on the learning objectives. Then look at the team now. The team is very important. Sino ba talaga ang responsible na gumagawa ng e-learning? These are the people who can help us in designing the e-learning or the remote learning or the flexible learning or flexible learning education. First, syempre, mahalaga dito yung HR. No? The managerial level persons, they're the one conducting this analysis for the capability of the institution to conduct the e-learning, to conduct the remote learning or blended learning. So, sila yung gumagawa ng trabaho na yon, hindi ang teacher. Kasi binababa lang nila sa atin, sino ang faculty o mga teachers na walang internet, walang laptop sa bahay, sino ang mga estudyanteng capable, yung readiness nila, yung efficacy level to conduct or to conduct learning an e-learning class, conduct blended learning. Ayan. Then the instructional designer. So sila ang bahala sa paggawa ng instructional strategy. Malaki ang part nila sa paggawa ng module ng online course, ng e-learning course. They are supporting the team in defining delivery and evaluation strategy. So hindi porke teacher ka, automatic ikaw na instructional designer. Okay. They are also responsible for designing e-learning activities and materials, including what we call the storyboard. Later on, in the afternoon, we'll discussing storyboard. Now, ito tayo. We are the subject matter expert. So, hindi ibig sabihin na si ID, ikaw na si subject matter expert. So, sasabog ang utak natin nun. No, we are the one providing the content. Tayo ang mismo experts ng instruction. Okay? Then web developer, the one who develop the self-paced courses, yung ating mga software developers, sila yan. Yung nagmamanage ng mga LMS, the Moodle, ng mga servers natin, IT requirements, so sila ito. Then the one who facilitates, the online facilitator and tutor. Again, sa online learning, hindi ibig sabihin na kung ikaw si subject matter expert, ikaw yung content, ikaw yung nag-provide ng content sa learning course, ikaw din si facilitator. So, hindi. Pwede magkaiba yon. Halimbawa, ikaw yung nag-develop ng material, pero hindi ikaw yung mag-facilitate. So, pwede siya mangyari kasi trabaho siya ng isang online facilitator. Example, yung math, parehas kaming math teacher, no? Pero si math teacher na to, siya ang gumawa ng content. At merong ibang math teacher na nag-provide ng content. Pero ako, pwede akong mag-facilitate nung lesson na ginawa nila as an online facilitator. Pero hindi ako yung gumawa ng content. Pwede mangyari yon in an e-learning modality or online learning modality. Now, there's also support group, no? The technical support specialist. So, kailangan sila sa every part ng process natin ng e-learning. So, kung titingnan nyo mismo, with the 5 processes of a D, kung saan papasok yung bawat members ng team, napakalaki ng role sa first part pa lang ng analysis level. Kasi ang responsible sa analysis level ay yung subject matter expert and the instructional designer. In terms of development and implementation, so malaki na responsibility ng mga web developers natin. Even the tutor on the implementation side. Again, if your institution wants to adopt this kind of process in managing your online courses or online learning, I would encourage you to use this kasi malaki ang matutulong nito sa process ng development ng remote learning and flexible learning. Then also the technology. Siyempre hindi naman magpa-prosper ang process na to kung wala ka namang technology. So ito na yung pag-procure, yung paggamit ng mga Moodle services to deliver e-learning. Mahirap kasi mag-deliver ng e-learning kung wala ka naman technology. Napakaraming available ng mga technologies, open access. It can be purchased as well if the institution has its own mechanism to purchase. So those are the essentials of e-learning and the foundations of distance education. I will teach you na later how to design an e-learning course. Specific tayo doon sa paggawa na. I'll be showing you some perspectives later kung paano siya pwede i-deliver. At the same time, you can also comment, no? Kasi syempre, and by the way, hindi ko kayo tuturuan kung paano gumawa ng ebook, kung paano gumawa ng presentation. Kasi you can do that right after this, like, right after what we will be discussing later on. Kasi kailangan ko muna kayong mabigyan ng perspective in terms of creating, designing a course, no? Sa perspective ng isang guro. So, yun. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so this time around, I will be teaching you how to design and develop an e-learning course. So, this will include methodologies for developing a material, okay, as well as what are the fundamental concepts, fundamental principles to design a learning plan, specifically when you address e-learning or online learning courses. In a way, this could be applicable naman. This could be applicable naman to any flexible learning and remote learning modalities. It's just that we want to focus more on the way how you create or how you modify your lessons. No? So here is the outline for the session this afternoon. I will be discussing the identification and organization of the course content, as well as we will focus also on instructional evaluation and delivery strategies and the development of an e-learning course. Okay, specific yan. So let's start first with the course content fundamentals. Okay. So for the course content fundamentals, basic question is, what are the topics that you're about to offer, or if it is already determined for a specific grade level or course level in basic education or in universities, how will you choose? Okay, how will you choose topic, or how will you choose the content of the course itself, and the way how you organize this content? Okay. So first thing but we need to consider in terms of the content development is the needs analysis. Identifying the gap or the gaps in terms of professional knowledge and skill. That is why schools, before they will implement online learning, blended learning, or distance learning, there must be a sort of needs assessment or needs analysis. In a sense that you will check the capability of faculty to conduct e-learning or blended learning, the training capacity, the training development or got did they get trainings before related to development of online materials, okay, in terms of instructional materials development, just for the part of the faculty. For the student, we will focus on what available resources do they have right now, how frequent they use technology, or the accessibility level of the student in terms of the use of internet. Okay, are they capable of using which they prefer? For example, they prefer to conduct asynchronous or synchronous learning or remote learning, or they want to accomplish their course in a form of modular approach. So, sinasagot siya sa isang needs analysis. Okay. So, what are the causes of the gaps? Okay, so since there is a gap but we need to look to the idea where gaps are coming. The first one is the policy and legislative frameworks. So, how is the current setup of the institution? Are they supporting largely the conduct of flexible learning? Or if it's like that, Ed, how prepared the institution itself, since it is centralized and bureaucratic, the processes and the protocols are needed to be considered because it's in a large scale training and professional development for depth ed teachers, not only for the public schools but also for the private schools. No, organizational aspects, the incentives, the privileges, the academic freedom rights of teachers, support structure, is there an equipment available, the condition of finances of the institution, as well as staff. How capable staff would be in terms of this kind of delivery. Will there be work rotation or will there be revision on the job responsibilities or references? Then also the individual capacity, specifically the capability to work in a blended mode, or the ability to adapt to these changes or measures for addressing blended learning, no? Kasi baka mamaya we impose policies pero hindi naman natin na-train si teacher, hindi naman natin nahanda ang buong community for this kind of new environment. So, useless yung mga preparations. Who will be our target audience? So, specifically for the target audience, we have the learners. What are the things that you need to consider for the target audience who will be receiving or who will be the recipients for the distance learning or the remote learning, online learning? First, you need to consider the region or geographical area. There are some schools like in Manila, sa mga university sa Manila, maraming estudyante dyan nagdo-dorm, most especially in state university. At karamihan galing sila sa nearby provinces. So hindi mo naman pwede papuntahin yan once a week lang sa university just to have face-to-face classes, although ang iyong modality ay blended. So you need to consider how can you reach them. Then yung iba galing pang Visayas. Meron na mga ibang mga private universities, like for example, within the province area lang, ang karamihan sa mga students. So, how can you reach them? The kind of organization or institution in which learners work and their professional role. The skills of the learners in terms of computer and technical expertise. Are they capable of using technology every now and then whenever they accomplish their tasks or do their school works? Then the amount of time available for e-learning and the learning context. Again, it will take ample time for us to identify depending on how the idea of duration on the part of the teacher who will implement the e-learning. Kasi baka mamaya mag-discuss siya ng isang lecture abuti ng 4 na oras. So, hindi mo pwede yon. So, well-structured kasi siya in a sense na kailangan time-bounded. Then, merong general and specific expectations lang na dapat ma-accomplish within that course. Where do students participate the e-learning? How they can access that? The idea of network bandwidth, the internet connection as well. It's more on the interface of the e-learning, no? More on computer and software capabilities. How can the ID stands for Instructional Designer, no? How can they identify the detailed course content in order to create a course? Now, through course analysis, it is considered to be the most critical step in the instructional design process. So you need to understand how to do what we call course analysis. There are different methods to consider in doing course analysis. First one, it can be in a form of a task analysis. If you want to focus the course content on tasks, accomplishing the objectives or competencies, you go to task analysis. Now, if you want to go to topic analysis, then the content must be fully considered. We also have here um, for task analysis, specifically, it it is used mainly in the course design to develop specific job-related or interpersonal skill. Kaya tinatawag na perform courses. Pero pag topic analysis is heavily rely on the content. Mean to say, yung topic, yung concept mismo, is more on information or achieving broader educational perspective. Pero if the skill required for the online course to be delivered is more on uh, job related, you go to task analysis. Now, for task analysis, it is job centered, driven analysis type. It's focused on the skills, and it always create what we call a case-based scenario. And talking about case-based scenario, as you start the lesson, you pose a problem, you pose a given scenario where the student can imagine or can realize or reflect on the situation. Sometimes most of the time it uses realistic job context applicable to their discipline, applicable to their preparation. Halimbawa, for senior high school, if it's STEM, so you always cite what we call case-based scenario na related to science and technology, even though the subject matter is in Filipino, for example. What are the steps for task analysis? So first one, you need to consider the task to be identified. It is always being patterned with the course competency or the learning competencies. Kung sa DepEd ito, you always pattern this or consider the learning competencies. So typically, there are two types of tasks that you need to classify, no? After identifying the task, it can be procedural, it can be principle-based. Ano ba ang mas focus mong gawin sa task? You want your student to do step-by-step procedure in order for them to accomplish something, or guided with a certain theory principle in creating something. So ito yung dalawang klase ng task na pwede nyo gawin sa kanila. Now, in terms of breaking the task or procedural task, it always goes with a step, no? It always goes with a step. Okay? And guidelines. Pag guidelines naman, it can be applied to perform the task itself. Now, for step 4, after that, you need to identify the required knowledge or skill. Identify the knowledge or skill needed to best perform those steps or apply those guidelines. Example of the task analysis is this. So I'll be showing you an example. This is an e-learning course to improve the food security analysis and promoting its use of decision making. So first, the following tasks needed to be performed. This serves as the learning competencies kung titingnan niyo mabuti. Select the most appropriate method, select indicators, analyze assessment results, and design and produce effective reports. So kung titingnan niyo mabuti, it's highly cognitive in terms of its construction, no? Then on the last part, it is expected for the student to create or to produce something, producing an effective report. Now, how to classify the task? It's a step 2. They produce what we call a guideline kasi it's more on it's more on principle-based yung kanyang job task. Okay? Then, if it is designing effective report, so these are the guidelines on the right. On the second column, these are the guidelines to create an effective report. So defining the purpose, communication, identifying user information, construct a message, then choose a report, then write the report na. So kung titingnan niyo mabuti, it's not merely specific to the steps, but these are the guidelines. Kasi principle-based yung mismong task na in-implement. Then for the required knowledge, for example, these are the guidelines. Halimbawa, ito yung general task, no? These are the guidelines to create the task. Then these are the required knowledge. For example, in defining the communication purpose, kailangan i-consider dito sa bata yung difference between an explanation and an advocacy. Now, this required knowledge can be done and can be can be discussed in the duration of the lesson. Pwede naman siya. But the problem is, halimbawa, ang main task kasi ng online class mo ay designing effective reports. So we expect the student to create a report output. Now, the required knowledge is given as an idea of a prior knowledge. Ibig sabihin, merong idea na ang mga bata on the required knowledge because this will serve as an input to the guideline itself. Now, kailangan bang i-discuss yung required knowledge nito sa duration ng online learning? Not necessary naman. Kasi sabi ko nga kanina, it's a prior knowledge na. It's a required knowledge na. Unless if there are new terms, new ideas na bago sa bata, pwede siyang ipasok doon sa discussion para mas maging clear sa bata yung kanyang gagawin. That's for the task analysis. Another one is the topic analysis. So the aim of the topic analysis is to identify the course content and to classify the content elements. So for the topic analysis, you always go to the general and going down to specific and really specific. That's the idea of course content. Sabihin, you start the discussion in a deductive method kung tutingin nyo mabuti. That's why generally if we deal with the course element on the topic analysis, leading with the course content, what are you merely generalizing? Are you focusing on the facts or procedure? Maybe on the concepts or principle or interpersonal skill? Halimbawa, for the facts, no? You start the idea on data, list, or historical events. But for procedure, you go into step by step. For the concepts, like for example, if you want to do concept mapping, you start with the concept of a general idea. For example, concept about climate change. So doon magsisimula yung discussions mo. Principles will go, for example, guidelines for facing price volatility. Interpersonal skills, it's more on, for example, in a scenario-based, in a case-based scenario approach, you pose a problem first, or maybe a conversation or a dialogue. Then within the dialogue, the student will be able to reflect. After the reflection, they'll be able to look on the possibility of checking the material. Then we also have here the attitudes. Attitudes, or what they call the predisposition to behavior. Example would be the content related to appreciate the importance and urgency of adoptive measures for limiting the negative impacts of the climate change. Okay. Now let's go with the defining the learning objectives. Again, it's an idea or a concept na halos lahat naman ng teachers alam na alam kung paano gumawa ng learning objectives. See, we always go back to the idea of Bloom's taxonomy, no, in creating a learning objective, from the remember up to creating principle ng Bloom's taxonomy. Aside from that, you may also consider here the digital Bloom's taxonomy, or the revised an innovative version of the Bloom's taxonomy from the knowledge level to create. So dito, it has been cited yung mga verbs na pwedeng magamit as part of your learning, in developing your learning objectives, no? For example, in create. Sa create, you can use the word design, role play, rewrite, pivot, modify, invent, or even write. Then we have here, the Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, the digital taxonomy naman ito. Like for example, in creating, you can use blogging, filming, podcasting, directing. So pero sa remembering, look, there are some new terms being used right now. Bookmarking, copying, highlighting, searching. So those are the digital taxonomy with digital tools that you can apply using Bloom's taxonomy. We always say that there must be an integral alignment between the learning objectives, the activities, and the tests. That's very important, no? all these three are working together to have an effective instruction, whether it is in face-to-face or in online. Okay. Now, if you will look at the way how it is being designed, the course design, I can refer you with the table here. No, this is a good template for you to analyze, and to assess the learner's understanding about the concept. Okay, excuse me. Looking at the learning objectives here, then we have the learning activities, and we have here the test pattern by just like parang curriculum mapping or concept mapping. Now let's proceed with how should the learning objectives be sequenced when you are structuring a course. There is a pattern of sequencing that's very important. No, when you consider sequencing on the topics, it is also deviated. This is also um, integrated on the idea of increasing depth and complexity. Habang lumalalim yung lesson from general, it becomes fully specific. So sequencing based on the order, the manner of frequency, the manner of chronological order of the events can be considered also in structuring a course. So first example would be prerequisite method. So these are the types of sequencing. No? We always follow hierarchy. This method uses as a learning objectives hierarchy, teaching first those skills that seem to be prerequisites for all other learnings. Parang halimbawa, before you teach the idea of foreign bills, you start first with the local bills, no? Before you teach continents, you start first with the local geography. Okay. Now, in terms of learning objectives hierarchy, these are some of the patterns that you may consider. Okay, wherein starting from defining, based on the given example a while ago, they are about to design a report. Defining first before going to the process of writing. Okay. Other sequencing method can be job context principle. Follow the orders of the job or the actions in the real job environment. Example, in the field of teaching, no? What should be the first thing to do when it comes to developing a material, or for example, in terms of test construction. So all of the sequencing methods are being considered here. Now, for non-job oriented course, it can be organized according to the structural connections, or what we call the thematic connections. When talking about Zoom principle, the curriculum can start with a more general overview, then focus on the specific topics. Then you will go back to the general conclusion. Parang, it's just like deductive method, pero on the last part, you always go with summary together with the conclusion. Then the current kind of curriculum we have right now, the spiral curriculum, applied now to DepEd for the K-12 curriculum. So you can also use that, okay, in a curriculum perspective, in terms of checking the understanding of students fully on the idea of e-learning as being patterned with the face-to-face learning. Now, for example, we have the course structure. There are different units on the course structure, then there are sessions. So it depends on the number of sessions you will apply. Now, we have also here the personal learning paths. So meaning to say, it's a module developing the course using a modular approach allows a definition of a number of personal learning paths that respond to different individual interests and learning needs. So ito ang klase ng model na ginagamit natin for modular approach sa remote learning, wherein you always look on the idea of personal learning paths. Ibig sabihin, there are what we call sub-sessions. In order for the student to appreciate and to understand task-related questions, no? Then, example of a design of the course plan. Um, ito ay ano, this is an example of a course, a whole course from Unit 1 to Unit 2. Wherein per unit, mapapansin nyo na per lesson, it is being meron siyang mga sub-lessons kung titingnan nyo mabuti. Then there are descriptions, what are the expected competencies per lesson, per topic na pwede matutunan ng bata. Ito yung general na course plan na tinatawag natin. Then if you will look on the specific, for example, this is an example of a specific learning plan. Para siyang the daily lesson log or daily lesson plan ng DepEd. Pero in a learning online course, napapansin nyo, napakasimple nung kanyang gustong tumbukin. Example, there's a thing called the learning objectives for the Unit 1. But for per lesson, meron siyang learning objectives na, for example, at the end of the lesson, learners should be able to define, understand, and describe. So kung titignan niya mabuti, medyo low order thinking skills pa siya, no? Yung lesson niya kasi first part pa lang naman ito ng lesson niya. Then main target audience, so pwedeng ilagay siya dito. Then the guidelines for the author. For example, this lesson introduced the basic concepts of impact and impact assessment. Kasi when you have the lesson here, the learning plan, magiging general yung approach. Kahit sino na facilitator ay pwedeng mag-implement ng learning plan na ito. Hindi siya well customized sa isang teacher lang. It can be general in terms of approach. So yun yung essence ng e-learning. Then you have here now the learning steps, no? What is assessment, attribution gap, purpose in doing, and impact assessment. So, yung scope for the author, these are considered to be these are the learning steps, no? Or what we call the instructional steps na gagawin ni teacher. O kung sino man yung online facilitator na mag-handle ng online class na yun. Example, I expected that for the topic here, what is impact assessment, sa scope note, sabi dito, provide a definition of impact assessment, includes description of its components, then stress the importance of understanding the big picture. So mean to say, in this learning step, ito yung expected na dapat gawin ng author while discussing the learning step. Sabihin, well-guided na siya doon sa mismong lesson. That's what we call the e-lesson. Then meron ditong resources, no, na gagamitin ng student o ng mismong online teacher sa paggawa ng mismong klase niya. Now there are certain questions that we need to answer. Okay, so are we providing a self-paced or an online workshop using online communication tools? Which level of interactivity will the course have and the kind of material that we will use? Is it in a form of an audio, a video material, or just text or graphics? So now let's talk about this topic involves the idea of instructional methods. No? For instructional methods, there are different methods that you can use for online learning or for e-learning. We have here the three. We have here the expositive, the application methods, and the collaborative methods. For expositive, so it's more on the absorption of new info. For example, you have here the presentations, case studies, work sample, and demo. For application, it's more procedural and principle-based. Okay, so again, building new knowledge. But for expositive, students are trying to absorb new information. For collaborative methods, it focuses on the engagement, learning engagement, sharing information and knowledge in a collaborative way. So maybe we could focus on the different, activities that we can use with the different methods here. So we'll go for this one by one. For expositive methods, you can use presentations, no? case studies, okay, work examples of the topic with comments and explicit reference to the theory, or even in the form of demonstrations. So ayan siya. Looking at the delivery formats here, you can provide PPT presentations, document files, or interactive lessons. Presentations also will do or in the form of webinar or virtual classroom. Minsan sa loob ng LMS can provide its own webinar, pero merong iba that you can provide virtual classroom via Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, Zoom. It depends on your capability to use. Then application methods, more on practical activities. So best example of the practical activities would be demonstration practice method, wherein you are teaching them to what? To perform a procedure. Okay. Yeah. So you can use here virtual classroom or interactive e-lessons. Halimbawa, excuse me, you want them in TLE, no? You want to teach them how yung process ng um for example sa TLE, pagtatahi, stitching. So you can use a procedural base in the form of demonstration practice method to teach them how to stitch. Ayun. Pwede siyang online class. Ikaw mismo yung nagtatahi. Tapos nag-discuss ka sa again, medyo siya, actual thing na ginagawa natin. Pero pwede ka naman magturo ng ganong mga approaches pa na gumagamit ka ng mga multimedia resources. Now, for job aids, that's just-in-time knowledge, o yung mga how-tos, do-it-yourself na mga videos, or you call that, or materials, you can use what we call printed documents. Case-based or scenario-based can be delivered through e-learning, simulations, can be tutored individual activities, or even in the form of a group activity. Role-play. Role-play can also be delivered using e-learning. It's just that there must be a current or synchronous approach in doing role-play. Kasi pwede ka magbigay ng task. There's what they call breakout rooms sa Zoom, for example, or sa Microsoft Teams. Tapos pwede silang mag-discuss doon on their own. Ibigyan mo sila ng around 10 minutes to discuss or to do conceptualization ng kanilang role play. Then pagbalik mo sa klase nila online, bawat group mag-share na nung kanilang naging output. So that's a good platform naman for role play. Yun nga lang, wala silang physical interaction with one another. So virtual interaction yung nagagawa nila. Then we have here the symbolic simulations and serious games. Halimbawa, yung mga Android applications, game applications na pwede nilang gamitin, most especially for preschoolers, for elementary education. So napakarami niyan sa Google Store. Actually, if you want them to teach the idea of tracing, yung pagte-trace, connecting the dots, Google Apps o Google Store na mga applications na pwedeng i-download ng bata. Pero in a modular approach, mas fit pa rin or mas recommended pa rin yung paggamit ng mga books, mga tracing books ang tawag natin doon, yung mga big books in order for them to learn. Yun nga lang, in this kind of modality, kailangan dito yung guidance ng parents in terms of the delivery of the instruction sa bata. Dapat meron din silang provided na guidelines o ng parang manual o procedures on how to conduct homeschooling para yung pwede i-supplement yung paggamit ng mga Android games kasi pwede naman talaga siyang gamitin for teaching. It's just that yung accessibility at yung cybersecurity para sa bata yung kailangan natin i-consider. Guided research. For high school, for college, you can ask, actually, mas working ito ang guided research kapag nasa online learning. Kasi it's more on searching information via internet, literature, conceptualization, uh, creating the problem, scope limitations, literature. So talaga magagamit nila ngayon yung skills nila when it comes to information searching. Yun nga din, kailangan gumamit pa rin ng modalities and discussion forums, ng email or chat in order for us to validate the content of the research, or even Google Docs, yung mga available na mga online productivity tools and collaborative tools na pwede nila magamit. Project work can also be done as long as it's digital. Kasi syempre medyo mahirap. Pwede naman sa bahay kung kung meron mga gamit ng mga bata sa bahay to create crafts and arts. Tapos bigyan mo lang sa instruction via internet. Then they will present that in an online meeting. Papakita nila, they will discuss why did they come up with that kind of output. So again, that can be done through chats, audio, video conferencing. Then we have here the collaborative methods. These are based on dialogues and discussions among facilitators and the learners. Again, this can be done through synchronous communication. So again, discussion, even asynchronous for discussion forums. Yeah, example is the online guided discussion. Okay, so actually, guided discussion pa rin naman siya na ginagawa natin sa loob ng classroom, pero online nga lang yung approach. So online yung kanyang version. Collaborative work, creating an assignment or a project, they can use internet or chat or email with that kasi students can still communicate via Facebook Messenger. So pwede nila magawa yung mga trabaho nila kahit chat lang. As long as they have the computer, they have the laptop, or they have the internet. And then they have the peer tutoring. It is useful for train-the-trainer projects. So bibihira itong gamitin for online kasi ang focus ito is more on professional development na. Now let's move on with the delivery strategies. Talking about delivery strategies, these are the delivery formats, no? Learner-related factors, what are the technology aspects for the delivery of online learning, and the organizational requirements. So first, let's talk about the learner-centered factors, no? First thing that we need to consider is the comfort of delivery channels. Talking about comfort of delivery channels, how comfortable are we in using LMS, for example, in using Google Classroom, in using Google Meet, Zoom? Kasi we need to check we need to check the confidence level or the capability level of the student, even the teachers, in using this kind of formats or delivery channel. Aside from that is the level of technical expertise. You're transforming ito online. The institution is transforming to blended or learning online, pero hindi natin ma-define yung level of technical expertise ng bawat isa. We can say na maraming teachers ang hindi pa talaga well-trained when it comes to online education. Technical expertise is different from content expertise, okay? If we'll go to the TPAC information, the idea of technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge. So there are three major components na kailangan i-address doon. And for teachers right now to become a technical expert, these are some of the things that we need to consider later on in terms of having an institutional policy in terms of blended learning or blended education. Then the available time as well. How capable are they in terms of using their spare time or their instructional time for teaching? That is one of the major concerns. Now, for the technology aspect, the capability of the learner, specifically the computers of the learners, as well as the infrastructure and the connectivity. Again, lagi naman itong issue whenever we conduct an online class, no? Are there no, I mean, we should be aware, or the institution must be aware of the bandwidth limitations and the kind of computers and programs that everyone will use, and the kind of training course in terms of multimedia development. Kasi we may say na in the current situation we are having right now, ang subject matter expert, minsan kailangan niya maging instructional designer. Minsan kailangan niya maging kailangan niyang maging online facilitator. Then so, na-maximize yung skills na meron si teacher ngayon, which is dapat nakafocus lang sa isang component. Then the organizational requirements, available time and budget kung meron. Then the investment to the teachers who will be the one creating the self-paced course. Kasi in an online learning delivery, aside from in the blended learning, no, ang teachers kasi kailangan gumawa din ng module, kailangan gumawa ng online version nun, kailangan i-address ang blended learning. So there are lots of things that you need to consider if you really want to maximize the teachers in creating the content and creating the instructional plan. In which is hindi naman lahat tayo ay marunong talaga gumawa. Kasi meron iba sa atin who are subject matter experts. Merong iba naman magaling gumawa ng instructional plan. Merong iba magaling naman sa facilitation through online. So, ayun. Let's proceed with the evaluation strategies. No? For evaluation strategies, knowing the idea of the purpose, defining if you want to evaluate the learner's progress or provide certification. So again, that is being in a general subject matter, for example, in-depth ed subject matter or the subject, the courses in university, we have here the courses in college. The main purpose must be well structured, and you need to address and assess your students' knowledge and skills before the course starts. We always remember that assessment tests must always or should always match the learning objectives. Now, in the development of an e-learning course, okay, so in e-learning, subject matter experts provide the instructional designer with the info. So it is expected that they must have a high quality content. So tayo teachers, no, it's different whenever we do a face-to-face class to an online class. Kasi in an online class, napaka-limited ng mismong movement ng mga bata. That's why they heavily rely on the content na pwede ibigay ni teacher. Now, this requires high-quality content from the subject matter experts. Then the one who will design the instruction is the job of our instructional designers. Now, can an existing material be used without making any changes? Actually, hindi. Halimbawa yung libro, no? Yung hard copy ng libro, gagawin mo siyang digital copy. Pwede mo na ba siyang gamitin para maging main resource sa mismo online learning? Actually, hindi. It cannot be automatically transformed into e-learning materials. Just making them available from the website. Ang magiging labas niya, halimbawa, if we have hard copies of these resources, magiging digital copies lang siya, pero magiging supplemental resources lang siya. Hindi siya totally magta-transform into an e-lesson. Meaning to say, yung ginagawa ninyo na daily lesson plan, daily lesson log, the syllabi or the syllabus, yun yung pwede nating gawin into an instructional e-learning plan. Pero yung materials na like yung mga libro, tangible copies ng mga libro, ng mga magazines, ng pamphlets, ng mga journals, hindi siya talaga pwedeng fully gamitin in an e-learning as an e-learning material kasi meron siyang ibang requirement na gagamitin mo itong ebook na to. Well patterned siya dapat sa kada activity na ilalagay mo sa iyong learning plan. Again, a PowerPoint presentation that you develop in your face-to-face discussion. Discuss ka no, sa isang classroom. gumamit ka ng PowerPoint, it's not considered to be an e-learning content. So hindi siya e-learning content because it does not include all the explanations and examples which are supplied by the presenter in a traditional classroom. Again, yung PowerPoint presentation, hindi siya pwedeng i-consider na e-learning content kung ito ay ginagamit mo sa face-to-face discussions mo. Okay? Now, again, another one is if you have this so-called a 20-page article, no? Halimbawa, research article, ito, hindi siya considered na e-learning content because the article is not designed, it doesn't match the specific learning objectives, and because scrolling text pages is not the best way of reading online. Mas specific ang online learning or e-learning in terms of its deliverable. Halimbawa, when you provide them material, be sure na nandoon sa mismong material o doon sa mismong learning plan, yung specific na pages nung reading material or nung learning material. Kasi hindi naman babasahin ng bata yung buong libro na yon throughout the online learning. Hindi ganoon ang atake ng ating e-learning or online learning. So, only those important and crafted, well-designed learning resources ang pwede lang gamitin for online learning or e-learning. Okay? Now, aside from that, the content of an e-lesson should not take more than 30 minutes of learning time. For example, in an instructional delivery ng klase nyo, for example, every day kayo ay nag-meet ng an hour and a half. Pero in a single lesson, in a single online learning lesson, it should not take more than 30 minutes. Meaning to say, kapag nakita ng bata yung activity sa online platform, kailangan masagutan niya yung activity na yon, o yung kanyang learning time on that lesson should only take 30 minutes. Kasi pag tumagal siya ng more than 30 minutes, para ka na rin nag-discuss ng isang face-to-face na discussion, ng isang face-to-face na lesson. So, yun yung pagkakaiba niya kapag nasa online learning. Kailangan specific na kung ano yung target deliverable mo lang, wala nang masyadong mga palamuti, yung mga discussion, may mga motivation, wala masyadong ganon, although it is embedded kung titingnan nyo mabuti. Now, in terms of the content development and learning styles, use examples that are likely to be familiar if not all learners. Okay? So anything that is patterned on the maturity of the student and the grade level should always be familiar to them. So classify topics for each lesson as follow. Anything that must know, these are the core part of the content, and anything that's nice to know, students students could get by without this information actually, kahit hindi mo na kailangan i-discuss to. Anything that is considered to be very essential or considered to be mandatory to accomplish based on the learning competencies of the course. Now, aside from that, you need to write direct, simple, and clear, short sentences, and should not be longer than 25 words. In an online lesson or in an online learning plan, you always avoid jargons, You always minimize the use of compound sentence because you want to use it more simple. The use of personal pronouns like you, the use of I, you, and bulleted list when appropriate. Don't put lots of paragraphs whenever you are designing an instruction in online learning or e-learning. As much as possible, naka-list siya. Bulleted list dapat. Aside from that, use gender-inclusive, non-sexist language. As much as possible, we always use collective nouns, Halimbawa, over the years, men have continued to use non-renewable resources at increasing rate. So, it is more inclusive kapag ganito yung ginawa natin. Over the years, people have continued to use non-renewable resources at increasing rates. Again, you always consider the gender inclusivity to become non-sexist in the approach of using the language. Active voice, not passive voice. Spell out acronyms as much as possible. It's very important. If the students are using that for the first time, you always spell out the acronyms. Although at some cases yung mga teachers na tinatamad sila o tinatamad yung ibang teachers na mag-type kasi ang haba-haba ng mga acronyms, no? Pero it's a must for e-learning content na kailangan fully recognize yung mismong acronyms natin. Storyboards. Like for example, there's an example of a storyboard from slide, if using PowerPoint presentations, no? For slide 1, for the first slide, must include what we call the introduction of the course, okay? And it should always take 5 seconds of reading time. Sabihin sa first slide na yon, hindi dapat tumagal ang bata sa pagbabasa ng around 15 seconds. Depending on the concepts integrated on the slide. So kung titignan nyo mabuti, storyboard is considered to be a screen-by-screen description of what will happen to the lesson. So para kang gumagawa ng isang storya in a form of a story. Isang storya na nasa storyboard pero lesson plan siya na magkakasunod na scripted. Ito yung tawag natin na screen by screen. If you will be using PowerPoint presentations, you can really maximize your slides, no? So slides, screen by screen mo siyang gagawin. So storyboard is not the final product because it's just only a guide. It is an intermediate product which is then used by web developers to create a final interactive e-lesson. So this will serve also for the teachers as a guide kung ano yung continuity ng lesson na gagawin mo. Para hindi ka maligaw kapag gumagawa ka na ng learning plan later on. Yan, for example, like this one, no? Screen 5 of 25. So meron kang specific na activity dito per screen. Parang in a lesson, when you go to the next level of the learning, of the online learning plan, when the students are scrolling and clicking next throughout the online course, sabihin sa kada next niya, mayroong panibagong slide o panibagong task or you call that, panibagong interface sa lalabas. Depende do sa need ng mismong activity na ginagawa natin. Now, to give you an idea of the structure of the interactive e-learning course or e-lesson, you have here the summary or the learning objectives. So that is, the learning objectives should always have one screen only. For the introduction, you can have 1 to 3 screens. For the content, you have 4 to 25 screens. And for the summary, you have 1 screen only. So pansin nyo, medyo limited yung mismong screen numbers, no, sa kada process o yung structure ng mismong interactive e-lesson. Like for example, no, in this case, the first screen describes the objectives of the activity or the lesson itself. Then on the second screen, this is now the introduction of the course. Then after that, you go into the content or core of the course. So dito na yung mismong buhay o yung heart ng mismong lesson mo. So dito ka na maglalagay ng mga activities, ng forum, discussions. It depends on you on how many, again, the recommended would be, based on the example kanina, all about 20 screens lang for the whole content. Then you end that usually with a summary. Summary is a good portion in order for you to end the e-learning class. Laging merong ganito. Okay? Then now let's proceed to techniques for the presenting content. Okay, so for presenting content, First example would be storytelling. Storytelling is a good strategy for you to deliver or for you to narrate the course itself. Okay? Kung makikita niyo yung storytelling patterns dito, you can have it in a form of a personal perspective of the pronoun using we, us, let us use, or let's proceed. So, I mean to say, meron siyang may personal touch siya. Meron siyang personal connection kahit na virtual yung environment na ginagawa ng mga bata. Ginagawa nila yung kanilang mga specific tasks. Then what are the things that you need to consider? So for storytelling, create a realistic and credible context. Then also, characters do not need to present in every screen. So also, you need to be careful about the gender and cultural issues when developing your characters. Try to make dialogue realistic by keeping sentences short and using what we call informal languages. Dealing with scenario-based learning or approach. So you start the lesson with a given challenging situation in the form of a question or a situation itself, no? Marami kang pwedeng i-explore sa part na to. Pero halimbawa, kung ang discussion mo is social sciences, you may start with an issue or political issue or a pressing issue concerning society, no, to start the lesson. At least doon magkakaroon ng guidance yung mga bata in terms of how would be the flow of the discussion in an online learning environment. So, halimbawa, ito, meron ditong conversations. For example, Paula is a librarian working at the engineering college. Since the first semester is coming up, final semester engineering students always want to consult the assistant collection. So, I mean, scenario-based, then doon pa lang magkakaroon ng introduction ng problem when it comes to the duration of the lesson itself. What are the tips for you to create a scenario-based approach or to conduct a scenario-based approach? Create a scenario, that's very important. Provide learners only with the information required to make decisions. Then always define possible choices option for each of the critical decisions. The giving of feedback is very important. For each option, there should always what we call consequences that will elevate the quality of the instruction whenever you give feedback, whenever you are generating what we call consequences after. Toolkit is an e-lesson can take the form of a toolkit which allows them to select from among of the set of the independent topics. So rather than sequential, yung di-discuss natin kanina, procedural-based, meron kasing mga klase ng e-lesson, online learning, na by toolkit sila. So mamili lang sila ng topic na pwede lang pag-aralan. Like for example, this one, no? The topic is all about Web 2.0 in social media for development. So pwede silang mamili dito sa mga topics na to kung ano lang yung gusto nilang pag-aralan. Or about if you have an activity, merong options to conduct the activity. So pwede siyang maging toolkit. That's an example of a toolkit lesson. Parang for example, out of 5, they will accomplish 2 readings halimbawa, then they will create a reflection out of the available resources na pinost mo in a form of a toolkit. Then demonstration practice method, it is usually to teach a procedure. You first demonstrate it, okay? So ikaw mismo teacher, magpo-produce ka ng video or mag-synchronous learning ka using Google Meet, Microsoft Teams or Zoom. I-demonstrate mo yon, then let the student be able to demonstrate it on their own. Pwede mo naman silang ipa-record ng ganun, pwede namang hindi. It depends on the quality of activity you are posing. Ayan, so the lesson teaches how to import documents in a digital collection using a digital library software. So first, the task is shown both verbally and through an animation. So may mga ganito kasi mga virtual may mga virtual tutorial sessions na kasi na pwede mong maging reference sa paggawa nila ng mga outputs. I do suggest na kailangan mo lang I do suggest you explore lots of tutorial videos o yung mga how to make something in YouTube or in any platform sa open educational resources. Pwede mo siyang gamitin. Halimbawa, the topic is all about plagiarism, no? Ayaw mo naman magawa ng masyadong maraming mga guides sa idea ng principles ng plagiarism. Pwede kang mag-upload ng video, relevant video para ma-discuss further yung idea about plagiarism. Not really ikaw yung gumawa, pero pwede kang gumamit ng outside material or link na pwedeng i-direct sa mga bata at doon nila panoorin. Then, from the video, doon ka na mismo gumawa ng mismong guide activities mo. As much as possible, kung ano yung ginamit mo na resources, pwede kasi doon mo i-pattern yung quality activities na pwede mo ipagawa sa bata. Kasi minsan, yun na nga, hindi siya nagmamatch kasi yung assessment pati yung instructional activities mo. Kung heavily relied ka doon sa material na ginamit sa kabuuan ng lesson, it's better na i-consider mo yung guide, i-consider mo dapat yung guide questions mo sa paggawa ng mismong assessment patterns. Kasi we know the fact na, sabi ko nga, hindi naman lahat ng teachers kayang gumawa ng kanilang materials on their own. What we can do is to pattern. What we can do is to use the material, and from the material itself, you create guide questions, you create the direct activities that will address based on the need or based on what the material or the resources like video, the document, the report, article, journal requires the student to do so. Then the idea of deductive and inductive sequences are very important, no? From the definition of deductive, from the deductive sequence, you have here the definition up to the giving of example or cases. You can also go through first with the examples or specifics, then you go to the general or the definition of the theories. So what are the takeaways in dealing with online learning? I could give my takeaways for this topic is more on, first, e-learning or online learning, distance learning is challenging. Yeah. But if the teacher has its capability or has its good foundation of its instructional processes, the methodologies in teaching, even the quality of the pedagogies being used, the ability of the teacher to create the objectives of the lesson and to match that with the assessment, I don't think it will be much harder. It will be much harder for the faculty or the teachers to conduct an online class. Kasi what it requires is the idea of simplicity. Hindi mo kasi kailangan ilagay sa isang online class lahat ng dinidiscuss mo sa face-to-face. What I mean, it's more precise, clear, and concise. You go with the generalities of the learning competencies, the most essential one, and you go to specifics. Although may challenges talaga when it comes to the domain of learning, kasi ang e-learning, ang blended learning, distance education, it always address cognitive learning. Mababa ang kanyang level of considerations if we're talking about affective domain of learning and psychomotor. Kaya merong mga course, totoo naman, meron tayong mga courses na hindi talaga pwedeng i-convert from face-to-face to online classes kasi meron siyang need of expertise and specific need of competencies na nire-require ang physical interaction with the teachers. Aside from that, you need also to identify your role in e-learning or in online learning platform, in online learning modality. Will you be the one to create the content as a subject matter expert? Will you be the one to design as an instructional designer and develop the course? Will you be the one to facilitate or what we call the online facilitator? Actually, mas dumarami ang trabaho sa online learning compared sa face-to-face classes. Pero yung movement mababa. Yung movement when it comes to interaction, sobrang baba niya. Whenever we interact to our student, it's very general. Whenever we conduct our online classes or online meetings, hindi tulad ito ng face to face na masyado ka maraming binabanggit ano to, supporting concepts. Whenever we do online classes, you always go with the essential competencies kasi yung instructional time o yung learning time ng mga estudyante bumababa, nagde-decrease siya kapag nasa online class compare kapag ito ay nasa face-to-face class. Again, in a 2-hour class, face-to-face, usually kapag kinonvert siya into online, dapat 30 minutes lang yung kanyang learning time. So, ganoon siya ka-general, ka-concise, ganoon siya ka-direct kung titingnan niyo mabuti. And I hope you learn a lot on the topic of e-learning. Actually, madami pa yan, pero I know that PCPD will be organizing marami pang mga webinars or workshops in relation to the new normal, no? The new normal of teaching and learning. And I hope you learn a lot. Thank you very much for attending. I hope naiintindihan nyo ang discussions natin this afternoon. Again, in behalf of PCPD, maraming salamat for attending the webinar series, and for further instructions, I will be directing you late. You can have your concerns with PCPD through email and through Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe to my Facebook account. That's Sir Niño Naldoza. Just search it on the internet for information and to know more about distance education, distance learning, open education. So that's Sir Niño Naldoza. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much once again. Maraming salamat for attending our webinar this afternoon and for today's session. Stay safe, everyone.